Hello and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have the reemergence of my very first guest ever on this show. Maybe the first 3-time guest now. Not sure.
Maybe.
It might be. It's Ben Burns.
Hello.
What's up, Ben?
Oh, lots of things. I'm really glad to be back. I saw that you hit episode, it was 200 recently, right? Or was that a while ago?
30 episodes or so ago, yeah.
Okay, maybe it was 225 or something. But I was just like, man, we haven't talked in a while. So I reached out to you, and it's really good to be back on here. And I wanted to catch up with you. I wanted to see what you're up to. And obviously, maybe talk about some of the creative things that have happened lately and hopefully inspire some people out there to try some new things.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that was a great idea, and here we are. I always love what you're doing. I love the consistency at which you do it, and your output is really solid. And I probably owe you a debt of gratitude too, because I think as my first guest, if it would have went horribly wrong, I might not have stuck with it.
Oh no, I didn't know there was so much riding on that.
I didn't either, really, until I was thinking about it today before we sat down. I bet if me and Ben didn't have a good conversation, I might have said, I can't do this. I might have thought, I don't know how to talk to people.
That was so much pressure.
Host.
I'm glad I didn't know.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's the beauty sometimes of just starting something without thinking too hard and worrying too much.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you've been a huge inspiration for me too. I started doing monthly packs because that's what you've been doing forever at this point. Your ability to continually put new things out, new and interesting ways of producing Ableton racks is just really crazy and cool. And, that's been inspiring for me for the last 2.5 years. I've been putting out my own sound packs on Gumroad, and it's been really fulfilling and fun. And it's also a good way to, I'm sure this is similar for you, but it's also a good way to fill out your sample library with stuff that you either don't want to pay for or you can't find anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about your packs. They are interesting and unique, and they're things and sometimes it's things I've thought I should sample, but didn't feel like doing it or never got around to it. But I'm looking at them right now, and the wood one, it's called Get More Wood, Get Wood. But just going around, finding sounds you can make. I think you're in the forest in that one. Just anything that's made out of wood, and just great
actually
ideas.
Both of those were kind of just ideas to just go out into the middle of nature, 20 miles away from the closest building and a road and all that other stuff, just so it's absolutely quiet and nature. There's no road sounds or whatever. And just see what I can do out there with my recording equipment. And obviously I'm not going to be pushing over trees or anything, but it's non-destructive, crunching leaves and breaking twigs and stuff. And there's just a lot of really cool sounds that you can just harvest from basically anywhere. And unfortunately, living in Minnesota, I don't have an ocean nearby or anything, but so I'm kind of limited to forests. But I would love to try different environments at some point too. It's a ton of fun just to get inspired by that stuff. And honestly, the Get Wood pack is probably the one I've used the most, just because those really crunchy transients of the twigs and the underbrush, it just works really great as drum layering. You just put that on top of a snare, and it's just this wonderful crackle on top of it. It's great.
I've heard that our hearing is very sensitive in that particular frequency range.
Yeah.
And probably because of survival instincts. There's a creature
I didn't think of that.
Moving along in the woods, and you need to hear that. So
I didn't think of that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. But playing on that, in music, you can kind of use that for sounds that cut through the mix, like you said, with drums, to just make them kind of punch a little harder, or maybe trigger some animalistic fight or flight.
There you go. Yeah.
In your listeners, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and a lot of percussion samples, and this happens with lo-fi too, where people like put tape sounds, like tape noise on top of it, that kind of crackly tape noise. It gives the just the instruments or the percussive sounds way more texture because the transients are sharp and then they're done. But if you have this like tail behind it that has these like beautiful crackles or even like some tonal sounds to it, it can really elevate a sound. Like one of the things I've been doing in a lot of my music lately is I've just been putting like a sine wave pluck on top of my snares. And it just gives us this really cool, like harsh attack sound, but it also has this long, like tonal sound to it that you can manipulate, kind of like an old 808 kick drum. And it's really cool how you can just layer that stuff and add so many different things to it.
What kind of like frequency are you doing that at for the snare drum?
For those, usually it's kind of in the higher end, like C5 or something like that.
Okay.
So it's usually, obviously it accompanies whatever scale the song is in, but it's usually in the higher end. And it's usually like really short, like 75 to 100 milliseconds. It's just like, and it's there, but if you put a little bit of reverb or something on it, just send it to the reverb bus, you're able to kind of get that warmth and sound out of it without being obtrusive and annoying, or hopefully anyway. I don't know how other people think about that, but I've been doing it a lot lately.
That's cool. I've done it at much lower frequencies to kind of, more in like designing drum sounds to get the like, like that.
Yeah, to like reinforce that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like if you hit the snare without the snares on, it's just doom. So I'll layer that, something like that, in like an operator, say, and then get the noise for the part of the snare and put it together.
Yeah.
But I like that idea of doing it higher in a pitch that's in tune with the song.
It's fun.
Melodic, persuasion up there in your snare.
Yeah, and then one of the nice things with that is you can also deviate from the snares, and you can also just kind of inject your own little melodies or counter melodies up there too. And it's already integrated in the song where it doesn't feel jarring when it happens, but it's still, it's an option that's available to you. It's like kind of one of those tools in your tool belt kind of thing.
Yeah, that's super cool. I like that. Yeah, there's just so many things you can do, right?
Yeah, music's wild.
That's so weird.
Excuse me.
But yeah, I want to just plug it now in case people stop listening for some reason. But ben-burns.gumroad.com, where you can get all of the stuff. There's stuff you can buy too, but there's plenty of free stuff. I would definitely venture into the purchasable stuff, like you did the stuff with like the fruits and vegetable sounds.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
And did you see I've talked about it a few times, I feel like now, but did you see the video about Mortal Kombat where they're making like the blood and guts sound by tearing apart vegetables?
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. And honestly, for like horror and a lot of other sound effects in movies, like they use vegetables, like snapping like not a head of celery, but like a stalk of celery, like just snapping that. It sounds really close to like bones and just like it has, because it's fibrous. So it has like all of that extra kind of peeling and gross sound with it too. And it's just like, it fits so well with like horror and kind of gore like sounds. But, and that's one of the reasons why I recorded that pack, just because like, I didn't think I really had a need for it at the moment, but it was one of those things that was going through my head where it's just like, let's just go buy $10 worth of produce or something and then just beat the crap out of it. And, yeah, that was a fun one. That was a really fun one. So the general spiel about my Gumroad is that the most recent pack I release is free and all the other ones are $3. So I think, which one do I have this month? Oh, Jar. So this is being recorded in June or July. I'm not sure when you're planning on putting this out there.
Pretty soon.
But okay. So the most recent one I released is a contact library that I created from a mason jar that had this really cool tonality to it for some reason. Like, I don't know if it's a defect or what, but it just resonates really strongly. So I recorded that and then I just ran it through Contact, and it just turned into this really cool, almost like a tongue drum instrument. But it has a little bit more of like a glassy sound to it too. It's almost like if you made a tongue drum out of glass, that's what it would sound like. It just has this really kind of cool resonance to it. So that one is free throughout the month of July. And then in August, when I put out another contact library, then that one will go to $3, just like everything else on there. But like you said, I do have a couple free packs in there. I think I have a couple free contact libraries and a couple free sample packs on there too. Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. You've gone into contact pretty heavily over the last, I don't know, I guess a couple of years now, right?
Actually, I started in January.
Oh, really?
That
Okay.
was
So you got a lot.
that was kind of So in the past I did a sample pack every month, which is like 100 or 150 sounds. And then in January, doing contact libraries was something that I always wanted to try doing. I was inspired by Sound Iron, actually. They do a lot of contact libraries, but they also did like these small, like bespoke, very small, just libraries that they probably take from their other larger libraries and just kind of minimize down into like a $3 or $5 pack. And they put out a couple of those, and I picked up a lot of them because they were cheap and they were really cool just to mess around for random inspiration. And I just wanted to try that. So I've been learning how to make contact libraries this year. And I've been using my monthly sample pack as a venue to kind of just see, one, if people are interested in that, and two, if I can, just continue to make new and interesting sounds through it. So I've been having fun with it so far.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a nice way to combine your learning with your creative output.
Yeah, exactly. And like the first couple packs this year have been, they're very basic, but like I've kind of learned how to start integrating like effect chains and switching between instruments and doing all this other stuff. So they're getting more complex and detailed as this year goes on.
Complex with a K.
Oh yeah, exactly. Of course.
Oh, that's really cool. That's something I try to do. And I know we were saying this might be something to talk about, like just sustaining your creativity and being consistent, showing up and staying in front of your audience as much as possible.
Yeah.
Which is really challenging. And I'm always impressed with people like yourself that manages to do it for these extended periods of time. It helps keep me going too. It's almost like when you're at the gym or a workout class and you're like, the guy next to me is still doing push-ups. So
I better keep going.
I can't quit now.
Oh yeah. No. And, absolutely. Like I call my weekly stream, like the 2-hour track challenge that I do every week. Like I call that just going to the creative gym for me. Like that's what I call it. And that's because that's what it is. That's me just going out there and just putting in reps for music production and just trying to keep all those ideas fresh and just make sure that, if I have an idea, I can get it out there. If I don't have an idea, at least I can flail around for a little bit and just get, one of my buddies, Shaka Panda, he says sometimes you just need to get the fail out. And, sometimes you just need to just get all of that out there, and then you can work on, the bigger projects that you have in mind. But yeah, like being able to stream once a week and just just sit down, and 2 hours later you have a song. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, but that's not the point. The point is that you sat down and you did something. And that, that feels like going to the gym for me because, just like going to the gym, about 50% of the time I'm sitting down, it's like, man, I really don't want to do this today. And then, when you're done, then you're like, man, that was great. I had a good time. So, it's a lot like going to the gym.
I like that. And it's a good, focusing on the process is so important. It's really like the key.
Yeah, that level of consistency is really hard, but it's worth it.
I'm looking for it. Okay, I found it. You remind me of something, a tab I've kept open on my browser for the last week or two. I have so many tabs open.
I know that feeling.
It's kind of embarrassing to myself. But it's from Stephen Pressfield's blog. And Stephen Pressfield, the author of War of Art.
Yes,
one of my
that's why
favorite
that name
books.
is familiar.
And I'm always talking about it on this show. So if you haven't read it, I'm telling you.
I have read it. It's wonderful. I should read it again, honestly.
Yeah, that was more towards the people listening.
Yes, you should read it.
You seem to have absorbed that that mentality in your work. But he's got a quote from one of the writers for The Simpsons, John Schwartzwelder. And it's the trick he does. He says, I have a trick for making things easier for me. Since writing is very hard and rewriting is comparatively easy and fun, I always write my scripts all the way through as fast as I can the first day, if possible, putting in crap jokes and pattern dialogue. And, he goes on to basically say, the point is like to just get something out there and done. And then he gets to the like editing and fixing. And, I think that's a lot like the I forgot how you put it exactly, but get the
Going
junk
to the
out.
gym. Oh, get the fail out. Yeah.
Get the fail out. Yeah. Just do it and move on. And that's man. And I should really listen to it more myself.
It's hard.
That idea of just going through with it, just finishing it, getting to the end, just to do the steps. And get the workout in, get the reps in at the gym.
Yeah. Actually, especially to do the steps, because one thing a lot of people tend to struggle with is finishing something. And that's because you don't have a whole lot of opportunities to finish something. Like you can start songs all day. And that's the easy part. You can start stuff and you can be really good at getting that 4-bar loop or 8-bar loop or getting that chorus down. But if you don't know how to finish something, then you get stuck and you get stuck in that loop and you don't know how to progress. And I think it's really valuable for any artist to just try to practice finishing your project, know when it's good enough for you to release. And, that varies person to person. Some people, like me, I can sit down and just like write a song and be like, yeah, it's good enough, whatever. And some people like they're a little bit more meticulous, but they have to find that point in which they're like, okay, this is good enough for me to release, and I'm done with this. I'm happy with it. And it's really hard to find that point where you're happy with something and you're willing to share it with other people. And like, if you can practice anything, you should practice how to finish projects, because starting projects is easy. Like, I'm sure, like every other music producer on the planet, you have a folder full of hundreds of projects that are never finished because they either stall out or, sometimes they're just not good ideas, and that's totally fine. But sometimes you have a good idea and you just don't know how to manifest it, And you just have to learn how to like find that progress and learn how to get to the point where you can finish stuff. And finishing things is really hard. And I guess I'm talking in circles now, but yes, you should learn how to do it.
We're in a loop.
Kind of.
It's so true though. And that concept of like releasing too is sort of like taking the burden off of yourself and letting go of it.
It's no longer yours. It's the people who listen to it or experience your art if it's not music. And that's really like beautiful, and it's also really valuable. Where it's like once it's to the point, it's like letting your birds out of the nest, really. Where it's just like you don't have control over it anymore. You can't do anything with it. It's the world's now. But it's scary, and I'm sure that's one reason why people don't always finish things. But it's just so important to get comfortable with it and to find that point in your like style and in your creative process to like finish things.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can say from like doing the podcast, for instance, like I've got the pattern of the process pretty well down. After we talk, I put together the links. I find out if you want me to take anything out that came out weird or some like offensive rant you might have went on that doesn't need to get to the public.
All those. The 3 that we've cut out so far. You mean?
Yeah, this is going to be a busy one for me. But whatever it is, and and then it's the video. It's just like a streamlined process where it's not like it's any less work, but just knowing what I have to do next instead of where, and a lot of times in making a track, you can very easily say, what should I do now? What's the next step? What's like to not to have it down to where you don't even have to think about it is so helpful.
Yeah, it really
I'm working
is.
on some tracks with some friends of mine. We've started playing like a live rock band in
Oh, nice.
last July, like a year ago, when we were first brave enough to like go out of the house and
Yeah,
trust
right.
each other to not see anyone else but each other. And we got these 10 songs we're working on. And just the other day, I made a spreadsheet and I listed the songs. And then, kind of like you would in the old days, like in the studio, like when you were tracking, it would be like drums, bass, guitar, you know,
Yeah.
and just like Xing things out. I made it green boxes, so it looks kind of like a graph that goes across the screen.
Yeah.
Like, we're
Yeah.
almost there. But what a relief it was to do that, where I can like see the process and the progress and say like, oh wow, you know, like as far as like what I think we're going to need to do, we're like about halfway there. And like, I can really knock off this next thing like pretty quickly, instead of like before where it's like, all right, I want to work on this. Like, what should I do now? I
Yeah.
don't know. And there's the fear, there's the uncertainty. And that's where I say, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know. And like having it
Yeah.
just there to like see, like it's just little steps, little to-do list almost. So helpful.
Yeah. 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 Breaking stuff down into smaller steps is just so important. And even when I release an album, like I have a Trello board and I have things that I put in there, just like put on DistroKid, put on Bandcamp, set a release date, make sure that I actually put it live on Bandcamp on that release date, which I've forgotten in the past, and that's no fun. But it's also like setting up the ephemera for the album. Like I usually have like a README file in the Bandcamp thing, and I make sure the album art's okay, and like a liner notes for Bandcamp, because I always like having those little extra rewards in the Bandcamp files. It's just like all of this stuff has to happen, and it can be so overwhelming if you don't have it like listed somewhere. And I always think that our brains are really bad at remembering things. Like that's not necessarily what they're designed to do. They're designed to be kind of very reactionary and like make sure that, like you were talking about, like you hear the breaking twigs or something, that like a lion's not chasing you. So like remembering things can be hard, and the best thing you can do is like I have a to-do list like that I write down every day of just random stuff that I feel like I need to do, and just being able to sit down and just check that off. It's so valuable. And for larger projects, I use like Trello. So I have like, this is what I need to do this month. And then I can break that down into individual like weekly or daily tasks. And it sounds really boring, and it kind of is, but like, and we were talking about a little bit this before we started recording, where it's just like sometimes the boring stuff needs to happen to be a successful artist. And it's no fun, but you know, that's part of the process. Like organization is very important, and it has to happen, even though all you want to do is just sit down and make music or do art all day. You know, unless you hire somebody to do it for you, you're kind of your own boss, and you have to make sure that you're a good boss to yourself, because otherwise you can burn out really quickly when you're overloading yourself with all this other stuff that you need to do, and you keep putting it off because you want to do other things.
Yeah. Well, it's good stuff to do when you're not in the mood to make the music.
Oh, yeah.
Or you
Yeah,
don't feel like
absolutely.
sitting at your desk or your studio, or you want to be on the couch or something, like whatever it is. I
Yeah.
made that list, actually. I was with a buddy on a weekend vacation upstate New York, Berkshire's area
Yeah.
there, and there was no internet. There was,
Oh,
you know, but yeah, I didn't know that going into it, actually, too. So, I had
oh
big
no, the
plans.
worst.
You know, you always think you get like, oh, I got a whole weekend. I can do it like 20 years worth
I
of
can get
work.
so much work done. Yeah. On my vacation, I could finally get all this work done, you know?
It was
Yeah.
it was actually nice though when I realized it wasn't available, and I was like, oh, okay, that's not
Yeah.
on my worries today and this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did make that spreadsheet then. I was like, well, I still want to feel like I'm doing something, so it was a good time to do it. But I totally
Yeah.
agree with you about the remembering things. It's another book I've spoken a lot about on the podcast is Getting Things Done. David Allen.
I don't know if I'm familiar. I don't know if I'm familiar with that one. I'm going to have to write that down.
Honestly, man, it changed my life. And one of
Yeah.
the core, it's very like a business book, like you're a business executive and you got to run your company. But it applies to everything.
Oh yeah.
It's really just about like how you deal with like all of the incoming information and stuff you have to do, and how do you organize it so you can get it done. And one of the things he starts out by saying is like, we are not good at remembering things. We
Oh.
can't keep all that stuff together. And I found that was actually a source of a lot of anxiety and stress, like trying to remember all the things I need to do.
Yeah.
And just that like mental juggling act, like
Yeah.
we're not good at that, so it teaches you like how to set up like systems and things to remember things. To categorize your information so you don't have to remember things.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I think it really, I think I'd have grayer hair right now, and like more bags under my eyes and stuff if it wasn't for that book and that method.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That might have been where I heard it from originally. I can't remember honestly. Yeah, I like the thing you have with juggling. I always like to think of it as just like ping pong balls in a dryer, just like going all over the place, and you just can't grab the one you want because they're all flying everywhere. And if there's just like one or two in there, then you can just like you can get it, but
you can watch it.
Yeah, it's just yeah, exactly. But if there's like 10 of them in there, it's like, what are you gonna do? It's just making a bunch of noise in your head, and you just can't grab the one you want, and it's just it's just overwhelming. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, good one, definitely.
Yeah.
But you've kind of, realized that, I think, too, in your own methods. Like,
it's always good to have somebody else reinforce those ideas too.
I know.
Like,
I agree.
There's a series of books by Austin Kleon. One of them's called Steal Like an Artist. I don't know if you're familiar with those
I read
or
that,
not.
Yeah, it's a real small book, right? Like, a lot of illustrations, right?
Yeah, there's another one called Show Your Work, which is also really good. And I can't remember the third one offhand, but all three of them are really wonderful. And I kind of read, like you said, they're small and they're quick reads, but I tend to read them like once a year, just kind of as a refresher and just kind of a remotivator, being like, okay, I still got this. It's still okay. And it's just like, like you said, just watching other people get stuff done is a great inspiration for you to get stuff done. So it's really nice to have those books around just as kind of a refresher and a reinvigorator.
Yeah, that one was great, and I got a lot out of that. Just like kind of like keeping my ears open a little more for ideas, and it's helped me, just like notice when a nice turn of phrase you might say, or you hear someone say something like, oh, that's a funny way to put it, and like write it down, and just like
Yeah.
Like hanging out with a novelist, like you're gonna be in my next novel.
Yeah, but it's also great because it helps make you feel more comfortable, like taking those ideas and integrating them into your own personal style. Because the whole idea of stealing like an artist is to just obviously respect the source material and not just steal it, but just like take those ideas and like take maybe a chord progression that you think is interesting and spin it your own way and have fun with these ideas, and not try to sit down and just like, I'm going to do something completely original right now. And like, that never works. Like, you're always pulling from your past experiences and your past knowledge and like your past influences and all of this stuff. And just like being comfortable with all of that and like taking those ideas and putting them together is just really freeing, really.
Yeah, it is. Because if you look at even the most original artists in whatever field, they all have influences who have influences who have influences. And I think, it does. It gives you like more like confidence in that you're kind of going to spin it your way no matter what. You're going to mess it up in your own style, and you'll be off the mark in a unique way. That's all you.
Yeah. Yeah, and like one of the thought experiments that book has is to like take three of your influences and then to take three of their influences and to kind of like build a creative family tree from it, where it's just like all of these other artists came together to create you, and then you can kind of like pull from all of that. You have this huge library of influence to like go back further and further just to see like where all these people got their ideas from. And you can kind of remix that from all the way up there instead of just the three people that originally you found inspiring. And I thought that was really cool. I started that list, but I never finished it. I should really keep looking at that. I have it over there somewhere in my pile of papers.
You could almost make that in the background on your wall, like fill in those leaves.
That would be
cool. Like
that'd be a cool idea.
Whoever
I like that.
you want to put in, like that. I would love to almost have that like on my wall, right? Just
right.
Like, I should do the drums like, whoever.
Yeah, you just treat it like a dartboard and just be like,
yeah,
all right, going with that guy's style today.
Totally.
I like that. That's a cool idea.
Just because sometimes it is hard to start and know what to do and what direction to go. And sometimes my real problem probably is like I'm not focused enough, where I want to have the song that does everything and goes everywhere, and it winds up being nothing. So having the dartboard approach is pretty cool.
Oh man, I rely on randomization more and more frequently these days, and I love it. So one of the things that I've been doing in this season of the 2-hour track challenge is
which is season what, by the way?
Oh God, 16.
16.
Yeah. So every 3 months I do it.
Let me just
no. Go ahead.
We'll get back to that. The randomization, but 16 seasons, and it's every 3 months. So that is about like 12 weeks.
Yeah, roughly. Each season is 14 to 15 songs.
Okay.
So
30 hours times 16. I'm trying to do the math on like
what kind
of practice this has been. It's great.
It's been great. So currently on my YouTube, I have all of these recording sessions on my YouTube, but I am at episode 277 for the YouTube recordings. So that would be roughly 530 something hours of music production that I have posted on YouTube. Not all of it's great, but the whole point is to just like sit down and do something, and that's part of the fun.
Gives you a real perspective on that 10,000 hours.
Oh man,
idea.
It's a lot of hours, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's like,
I'm only like 5% of the way there.
That's like 40 hours a week for 10 years or something crazy.
Yeah.
Like a long time. But anyway, randomization this season.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this season I've been, I have this, VST on Ableton that just basically reads my sample library. I think it's from ADSR.
Yeah.
So basically I just, tell it to collect I search for all of my drum samples, and then I just hit random because it has a random button, which is the whole reason why I downloaded it. I hit random until I get a drum loop, and then I make a song from that drum loop. And that doesn't necessarily mean I have to use it throughout the whole track. Or I could just like high pass it and just use the hats for part of it, and then I can just build everything underneath it. But having that limitation and relying on something that's completely out of my control gives me the opportunity to not worry about having an empty canvas and not worry about being, oh man, should I start with the melody, or should I start with some pads, or should I start with like some field recordings and stuff like that? Like I don't have to worry about any of that because I start with just something, and it might be not the best drum loop I've ever downloaded. Some of them are pretty bad in my library, but it's something. And, I can take that drum loop and like, I can warp it out. I can put a bunch of weird effects on it. I can like make something from that raw material that was given to me. And then I can move forward from there because like it's crystallized into an idea, and I don't have to worry about having an idea because the idea is already had for me. Now I'm just fixing it, like you were talking about with that Simpsons quote. And I think that It's a really fun way of making music where you don't have to worry about like having that great grand idea. You're just kind of like you're in triage mode. You're just trying to fix fix the mess that was given to you. I do the same thing as a season finale for each 2-hour track challenge. I do a community audio challenge where essentially I talk to my Discord and my Twitter and all the people that follow the work that I do. And I just be like, give me the dumbest audio you have on your phone, like right now. And then I basically collect it all into a sample pack that I use to make a song. And ideally, I only use those sounds. And sometimes I've fudged it a bit by adding a bass or something like that if it really needs it. But just the ability to just take just a big pile of just garbage sounds, and some of them are fun and great, and like some of them are just like fart sounds, and it's just fun to just make dumb art and just have fun, just like, man, this sounds really bad when I put it in there, but it's also funny, so I'm gonna keep it. It's like you can't take art seriously when you're putting like weird fart sounds in like to replace the snare every couple beats or whatever.
Right.
So it's a good time. But yeah, like having that randomness is a ton of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's a great exercise in not taking yourself so seriously too.
Yeah.
Because it can be
it really
very
is.
tempting to be really artistic all the time and clever. And as silly as I like to get in making music, I still get that all the time with myself. Like, oh, these chords, I don't know. It's that progression everyone uses. But
I fall into that trap too. Yeah, go ahead.
That idea of the randomization with the loop is so cool. It reminds me a bit of a couple things. For one, just when you play with a person, when you jam with somebody, you don't know what they're going to play on the drums. And with the buddies of mine that I've been playing with, like that's how all of our songs really started. Somebody randomly did something, and we all said, "Okay, let's see what we can do with that," and just
that's awesome.
See if it turns into anything. And sometimes it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never had the pleasure of playing with other people really. Like I've done some live jams with a buddy of mine, but he has since moved, so we can't do that anymore. But it would be a ton of fun to like find some jam buds, and just like I think that's just an endless well of possibility and inspiration. Because like you said, somebody's just playing around with something, you're like, keep doing that. I'm going to do this, and just keep rolling with it. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the fun of it. And I've purposely like not brought song ideas in, all of us will write songs and stuff. So we've just made it about whatever comes up when we get together. And that's a lot of fun too, that limitation. And then within our limited time, which is usually just a couple hours, to try to come up with as much stuff as we can.
Yeah. I think a time limitation is really valuable too. Because it gives you that sense of urgency where you can't be like, well, I'm going to make this kick perfect. And you spend 2 hours twiddling knobs that makes it like 0.5% better or something, where in that same amount of time, you could like finish this song and start another one. And now, I'm not saying that quantity is better than quality, because obviously you want to make sure the music you put out there is good, but it's finding that point again, where it's finding that point of good enough, where it's just like, I could spend another 2 hours on this and make it 5% better, but nobody but me is going to notice or care. So why would I bother? And maybe that's what people say when they sell out. I don't know. But like I'm happy with the art that I make, but I also want to make sure that I'm not like just driving myself crazy trying to make everything that I make perfect, because at the end of the day, like people love to listen to music, but they don't necessarily pick it apart like other music producers. And primarily, I would imagine that a lot of the people that listen on Spotify aren't music producers. So it's finding that middle ground where you're comfortable putting things out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that was something I really got from our previous conversations from you, talking about like budgeting your time like money. If you have your 2 hours to work on your track. You cannot spend a half an hour compressing the snare drum and EQing it. Like you're missing the point here. You know, there are bigger fish to fry. You know, it's more important that you get a decent song together than you have a beautiful snare and nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff too is, I mean, it's only a beautiful snare in the context of the music it fits into. But I think that's a big thing we get obsessed with, and you know, when you are producing music, you're probably looking at a lot of videos on YouTube, and you know, stop doing this to your snare drum, it has like a million hits, and you start to think like, I got to do this exactly this way, but most people are not music producers and won't even hear your snare drum. They're just listening to the vocals or whatever it is. They're feeling the beat from if they're dancing or whatever, you know. There's it's just like if you watch a movie, I guess, like you're not like thinking about like the camera's panning. You know, that stuff is all important to, you know, immersing you into the experience. But I don't know. I don't know enough about making films to make a good comparison to compressing a snare drum. But
it's like, oh, they lit this scene really well, or like, wow, look at the blocking on the camera, like look at like the arrangement of the elements in the scene or whatever. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. There's a really good story that one of my friends told me, that he was like sharing some of the music that he had made with his dad, and obviously his dad was really enjoying it, but like he was also like, is that a piano? And it's just like, well, obviously it's a piano. Like as a music producer, like obviously you can hear a piano when you hear one, but like when people who aren't as familiar with music production or like music in general, like when they hear something, like I would imagine that it kind of all just kind of blends together into an experience more than just like when you listen to music, you're like separating the layers out, just like, oh, that's a cool rhythm. But I also like how it's playing with like the melody and the upper end and all this other stuff. But it's like when you're watching a movie, like it's an experience because you don't necessarily know how all those pieces come together. And it's just like finding something that sounds good is good. And there's definitely music producers that make music for music producers. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Savant, who was kind of big about 5 or 6 years ago in like the kind of dubstep EDM scene. And really, I guess to a point, Deadmau5 too. But like there's people that make very sound designy songs that are meant for other music producers to listen to and be like, oh geez, this guy's really good. Cohen's Sound's another one, I think, that has a really, really cool sound that's kind of more aimed towards, I guess they're still kind of popular too, with like more pop music style, but like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just got off on a tangent.
I hear you though. Like we can get lost in the details and miss things. Yeah. And you remind me of a very distinct experience I had right as I was learning to play guitar. I was 14 years old and been listening to music, but never ever thought of it as like something I could be involved in, you know. And once I started playing guitar, I started hearing the guitars in the songs.
Oh yeah,
like, that's a guitar. Oh, that's an acoustic guitar, and like being able to differentiate, like, well, that one has distortion on it, and all of these things. It totally changed the way I heard music. It wasn't just this one thing. Like now, usually for me, if I watch a film, I just see a film. I don't see all the layers like I do when I hear a song. I hear all of that stuff. And it's something that happens to you, I think, when you start making music, is you don't ever hear it the same way again.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part of that is that you want to make it unique too. And you want to make the snare perfect. And it's just like, well, nobody's going to hear that except for other music producers, which is important. But also, if you want to make a lot of music and if you want to put out a lot of music, you have to learn to find that threshold and, kind of learn to know when it's good enough. I'm harping on good enough, and I'm sorry, but that's like a really big thing for me. Knowing when something's good enough is so important.
Yeah. I agree. In recording, is that good enough? Is this, if you went back a few years when you were booking studio time and
Yeah.
you're trying to get everything perfect, you sort of have to say, well, it's $60 an hour. That's a good enough performance. We're going to roll with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're going to have
Exactly.
a half finished record and be out of money.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is a good thing to have in mind. And I do agree with you. There are times when you want to focus on that stuff, learn how to do
Hmm.
this. But if you just go through the entire process enough times, those skills will also, they'll
Oh yeah.
naturally rise too. You'll start to just figure it out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, early on in the 2 hour track challenge, like I still listen to some of the older songs, but a lot of them are not great. And that's just, that's part of the process. I was still learning how to do it, and I was still kind of getting used to the process of that, of having a limitation on the amount of time I had. And over time, excuse me, over time, I've really loved the music that I put out. Still sometimes there's songs that I'm just like, man, that one wasn't great. But there's also other times. I think the one with the wind chimes, that the wind chime pack that you released, I think last month, I did a song using that, and I really love that song. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't necessarily remember how all that came together, but I'm really glad it did. And it was a lovely experience. And yeah, like another thing, or sorry, the just the practice of doing it and the practice of getting used to having a time limitation. Knowing that it's like, okay, I have 30 minutes left. I have to make sure that I kind of wrap up the arrangement of the song, make sure that I have just a basic mastering process in there just to make sure that the levels are okay. Like you have all these kind of breakpoints where it's just like, okay, if I have an hour left, that's when I need to start kind of extending the song out. I need to make a B section or some kind of variation to it. Cause usually after the first hour, I've been doing a lot of sound design, and I've been doing a lot of just making the core, like the structure of the song, like the bass and the drums and the pads and all that other stuff. And the second hour is usually reserved for like stretching it out and making it a full song with multiple ideas in it. And that's just something that's my workflow. That's kind of how it happened over time. But it's also, something that I like to share with other people, where it's like, I highly recommend anybody do this, where you sit down, you write a song in 2 hours, preferably once a week, but I know everybody's schedule is different. And I guess I should talk about the community challenge that I do, or that I help host.
Yeah.
So every 3 months, I encourage all music producers to come together and do what I do, the 2 hour track challenge. I pull a random theme out, and that theme is essentially the inspiration to make a song. So let's see. I think one of the recent ones was entropy. So it's just the idea of decay, or the idea of things kind of falling apart, or, like the heat death of the universe, or whatever you wanted to do. But the idea is just to sit down and take that one core concept and then just make a song out of it in 2 hours. And then we all come together with all our songs, and we have a listening party, and then we release that as an album on Bandcamp. And then the sales for that album go to charity. So it's helping foster cats. But it's a ton of fun. And I love hearing people's responses to doing this, like going into it being like, man, how do I write a song in 2 hours? How do any of you write a song in 2 hours? And like usually after it, they're just like, man, that was really hard, but I had a ton of fun. Like having that limitation, I think, is just so valuable, because then when it's done. Because that's when the time's done. That's 2hac.abstractionmusic.com for more information on that challenge, or 2hac.bandcamp.com if you wanted to see the 15 albums we've put out.
Wow.
There's been a ton of them. The one we actually just did one a couple weeks ago, and we got like 55 submissions. But the one in April, we had 72 submissions. There were 72 artists in there, and that's just mind blowing. I can't believe so many people participated, and I'm so glad that they had a ton of fun with it. The album is like 3.5 hours long, which is great. It's like all sorts of different types of music, from ambient to experimental to like kind of like garage rock bands to anything. And it's just a fun menagerie kind of based off of the same theme.
When you're putting those together, is there any rhyme or reason to the album itself, the flow of tracks? Do you try to group things together, or do you just?
It's hard because I do kind of want to group them by flow and stuff, but I also don't want to put stuff first because then people might give priority to that or think that their song is better. So the track list is just the order of submission. So the person that submitted their song first, they're the first one on the album, and some people are happy for that and some people aren't. But it's actually really interesting because since each song is influenced by the same theme, usually there's kind of a thread that goes through it. Like I know with the Entropy one, there was like a lot of bit crushing, a lot of kind of distortion and destruction of the audio. And you can kind of hear that some artists did that in certain ways, some artists did it in the other ways, but there's kind of this thread that goes through the whole thing. And it's really interesting that sometimes there's like a transition between songs and it kind of feels like the same song. It's just like moved into a different part of a new section of the song, a new kind of, a new chorus or something. It's really interesting. Kind of just how all of that emergent sound happens.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of actual albums don't have like that central theme to it, so I can imagine that would pull
not anymore
together.
With kids these days.
What's an album, old man?
Yeah, back when there was records and you had a certain unlimited time, and
it's a fun limitation though. I mean, the medium really did inform the art form, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
With my buddies and these 10 songs we have, we hope to put it on vinyl, you know.
Nice.
Even if we just make 3 so we can all have one. Because
so
far
feeling.
That's the demand, you know.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be people out there for it. I'm excited to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
Oh, thanks. But it's been fun to think about, like, all right, so it's going to be these like 2 parts. And what would be like a good opener, a good closer of side 1, and then how does side 2 come back into it? And,
nice.
I'm hoping we can do a little bit of like weaving things together. I love that in records, and when they like, you know, track 4 goes into track 5, and even if they're not connected musically too much, there's still just, even if it's just like noise that connects, it just keeps you in the experience a little bit. That being said, like a silence can also be effective too. But I always love that. Like if a band is doing that, I'm like much more likely to enjoy it.
Yeah. It obviously depends on the narrative of the album, like you said, but it's always so cool when that kind of thought is put into it, where it's not just like song to song, but it's also like conceptually as a whole album. And that's something that I never really thought about with vinyls, where it's like at the end of one side, like the music stops, and it's just like you have to find kind of that point where like there is kind of this breath, this breath, like this breather between the A side and the B side, and like how do you make that happen? I don't know. That's really interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I've never done a vinyl before, so.
Well, you'll have to let me know. I want to do one too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you know. I don't know yet. We have certain ideas, like certain. I know, like, all right, that song ends on a C and this one starts on a C, so maybe we can, you know, like instead of the big like grand finale, dun, we can just skip that and you know, go into the next track. But yeah, it's fun. It's, and I think in Ableton Live, it's, you can put all your tracks in there and then really do like the web connecting thing pretty nicely.
Yeah, especially because really when you send it to the vinyl pressers or whatever they're called, like they just care about one big long song file that fits on one side of an album. So yeah, you can have it as crazy as you want, I'm sure. Just have it all mixed together. That'd be cool.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll figure it out. You know, it might be a step or two ahead of us, but
Oh yeah.
It's fun to have like a nice project like that to just indulge yourself in,
Yeah.
and to have a few other people involved too. Um, I've been doing stuff alone for so long, and
Hmm.
originally it was always in bands with other people. That was right from the get-go, pretty much. As soon as I started
Hmm.
playing, it was like, who can I play with? And uh, it's been valuable on my own, and I enjoy that. It's nice, like it's easy to set up practice and rehearsal times and stuff. Can
Hmm.
I do that show? Yeah. No, I don't know how I did it in the old days. Like, you used to have to call your bandmates
Oh man.
on the phone, and it
Man.
wasn't even their cell phone; it was their house.
Yeah, you get their
And
mom. And be like,
yeah,
can I talk to Jared, please?
and you get like three-quarters of the way through the band, only to find the last person can't make it.
Yeah, you have to call them all back and be like,
Start
oh,
over.
sorry.
I don't know how. I guess they really wanted to be in a band.
At that point, I think anybody like putting that much work into it would have to, like, just the coordinating and the effort.
Yeah.
Unless you like saw each other at school that day or whatever, but eventually you get too old for school.
Yeah. Well, that was part of it, actually, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
little extra work. Yeah,
Man, the internet sure changed things.
it did. Thank goodness. In some ways, I guess.
Yeah.
In that, I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
trying to
I
think.
love that. The
Yeah.
that you've done that much work on the 2-hour track challenge. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
it's really impressive. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like if you follow like The Rock on Instagram, or
Oh
like
yeah.
some of those, there's some people on there that like show their watch at like 5 a.m. and they're working out in a pile of sweat and telling you there's
Yeah.
no excuse. It's kind of like that, like
A
there
little
you are
bit.
showing up, getting at it.
Probably
And
probably a little less sweaty, but
I don't know
yeah,
when that
like
when that time starts running out. I bet there's
uh,
often occasions where you're
oh yeah.
wondering how it's going to come together, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely been times where I've gone over where it's just like, I have a good idea and I'd hate to like leave it hanging just on this. So it's like sometimes I think I've had a 3-hour trek challenge like once or twice, but for the most part, it's usually around 2 hours. But the timer is there to give you motivation. It's not there to be like the axe at the end of the thing. It's just like it's done now. But it's just really important to have that motivation just to keep moving. And that's actually the reason why I stream the music production too, because I get distracted so easily. Where I'm just like, okay, I wrote a bar of music. Let's go watch a video on YouTube, or let's go see what Twitter's up to. And it's just like, no, you gotta keep focused. And when you're streaming, like when you're sharing your screen, like you can't dick around on YouTube, because like then people will just be seeing you do that, and that's not good. That's not good content for them.
Right.
It's also nice because the people who watch on stream are also sometimes much smarter than me when it comes to music theory, so they can get me out of a jam sometimes, which is also very nice.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Nice
Yeah.
to get like a little pointer on how do I get back to the verse after this weird part I
Yeah,
just went
exactly.
through.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if you can stream, I would recommend trying it someday. It's not for everybody, but it's one of those things that can be very, very liberating, just to know that you have to stay focused and you have to stay working. And then you have your friends with you on your second monitor, and you can just chat with them and hang out. And it's a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of it. One of the Januaries, I streamed everything. And that was the
Oh,
first
yeah?
thing I noticed was, wow, like I got to stay focused. That
Yeah.
it keeps you honest. It really does. Because you don't realize, or at least I don't realize, like how easily distracted I am. And it could seem like you said, like watching a video to learn something might seem productive, or, I don't know, trying out 4 different guitars might seem productive before you settle
Yeah.
on something. But when you're being watched, there's definitely a different focus that's really hard
Yeah.
to to capture otherwise. You know,
Yeah, and
you go with it.
It can be,
figure it out.
yeah. It can be problematic with that too, where sometimes you want to be experimental and you're just like, well, I really shouldn't waste so much time like messing around with this weird synth that I've never used before or something. So
Right.
it can be a double-edged sword that way. But for the most part, I found it to be a huge benefit for, you know, the way that I write music. And again,
Yeah.
it's not for everybody, but
That's actually a perfect example. I've found myself like busting out a plugin that I want to learn, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing here, and this is not only going to be like bad content, but it like ruins my credibility. This idiot doesn't
Yeah.
even know how to use this. You know?
yeah. No, I hear you.
Have you found any like big, I don't know, maybe time savers or maybe errors that you were making previously that you've been able to like clean up?
Like
Bad
relating to
habits
streaming
or just
oh man,
just your process of music making.
yeah. Yeah, like one of the best things about having a time limit is because it exposes every bottleneck in your workflow. Because like, you know, when you get stuck because you have that counter ticking down and you're just like, why am I still working on this? It's been 20 minutes. I should be far past this by now. And that's usually an indicator that that's something that you need to work on. Like if you get stuck on a particular rhythm or a particular melody, or like if you're in a scale that you're not familiar with, like that can be a huge slowdown with your process. And when you have that timer ticking down, that really accentuates the idea that maybe, you know, when this is done, you should go back and kind of better learn and better be more comfortable with the idea of doing that if you want to do it at all. Which obviously, as a music producer, you kind of want to know a little bit of everything so you can just kind of explore and do weird things. Scales in particular for me are something that I really struggle with, like the Mixolydian and all those other kind of not as common scales. And I really, when I use them, I love the way they sound, but it also just slows down the production process so much that I kind of struggle to finish the song sometimes. And yeah, so like the whole process of having a timer really helps expose all of those errors. For me specifically, like I used to get caught up with a lot of sound design. Sound design is kind of the thing that takes the most time for me, which is one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of electronic music during the 2-hour track challenge. Because I get wrapped up in trying to make massive sound exactly just so, because I have like that, you have that sound in your head that you want to replicate, and you just can't get it right, and it's just so frustrating. And all of a sudden 25 minutes or 30 minutes have gone by, and it's like, oh man, I still have like 4-bar loop or an 8-bar loop. I really need to like get this going. But one of the benefits of electronic music like that is it's primarily focused on the sound design. So once you get that locked in, then it's just kind of extending it out, messing with some automation, making sure it all kind of sounds good, maybe putting like a breakdown and a build up in there, and then you have a song. Like it's kind of wild how fast a song can come together once you have all the layers locked in. And you're just like, okay, well, just control D a bunch there, just put some automation in there for a low pass, kind of then, you know, block out a 16 or 32 bars for a breakdown and build up. And then you just like, you have a song and it takes 10 minutes, and it's crazy how fast that comes together. But man, like sound design is one of my big, stumbling blocks still, just because, it's hard to hear something and know how to perfectly replicate it in something like Massive or Pigments or whatever the popular thing is these days. I do like Pigments though. I got that recently.
I haven't tried it, but heard great things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's good. It's very flexible, which I like. I got very familiar with Massive, and when Massive X came out, I tried it, and it was just like really harsh on my CPU. Like I just couldn't make it work and not just completely glitch out my computer, which it's like 6 years old. So like it's probably my computer's fault, but Pigment seems to run okay in there. And it just has a lot of different ways of generating sound. Like it has the granulizer in there. It has a sampler. It has like just a straight like LFO and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options, which I like.
Yeah, nice. Well, it's good to have like the tool, you know,
Yeah.
it too, because that'll cut down
Yeah.
on the sound design time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's good for creativity or inspiration, where it's just be like you have this weird sample and just like, man, I could granulize this and that would be really cool. And then you can just toss it into a simple, I guess a simpler can do it too, but not really the same way. But like you can toss it into pigments or like a contact instrument that does no, that's Reactor that does form. Form is a really cool one in Reactor. I like that one a lot too. Yeah, yeah. There's just like if you get really good at a certain set of tools, then you can kind of garner inspiration off of those while you're working on other things, and that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And sound design is something that can sweep me away into forgetting what I'm doing, where I was making a song and I don't even remember what the idea was, but I'm got this crazy sound now.
Yeah.
But it's also
Exactly.
sometimes the thing that pulls me into making the song too. So a lot of times when I'm working on something, I get a sound and I'm like, whoa, and then I start playing it, just testing it almost. And next thing you know, you're making a song. And I try to always go with the song. If that does happen, if I'm working on a pack or something, if the song starts like bubbling up on its own, it's like you can't put the lid on that.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's
go
just
ahead.
it's just too important and too fleeting a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one good lesson that I've learned. And I actually learned this really recently, but the idea of improv comedy with the yes and, where you're never shutting an idea down. And that happens a lot with music production as well, where it's just like you have this idea and then you're just like, well, no, this goes against the idea that I want to do, but this sounds really cool. And you need to encourage that yes and, where you have that idea and then you just keep rolling with it and seeing where that goes, because that flow between ideas is so valuable. Like one of the most favorite things I love to say is, this is really stupid, I love it, because it's just like you do something, it's just like, this shouldn't work, but I really love it and I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens. And 10% of the time it doesn't work and I just kind of have to like delete all I did and I wasted some time, but whatever, I had a good time messing with it. And but most of the time it's just like, this was really dumb and I'm glad I went this direction, because this ended up really, really fun and weird. And dumb isn't a bad thing. I say make dumb art, but that just means make art that's not serious, because that's more valuable than anything else.
Yeah, and it's also just, if you don't have anything, at least you have your exercise of the process. At least you're going through it.
Yep.
Yeah.
At least you went to the gym.
Yeah. You at least did it. And if something comes out of it, okay, great. But if not, oh well. Yeah, I was thinking of that when you were talking about the random drum beats in a way, that, just like you're like, okay, let's do it. Let's go with that.
Yep.
And that's a little bit that happens playing with other people too. You're like, all right, that's your beat. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's see what I can do with this. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take it further. And it is funny, like some of the songs we've done, we're like, where did this come from? Like, how did who said that? And you have no idea after a while, because you just, it's the ideas are like that ping pong ball bouncing around, and it wouldn't ever get hit back to you for you to hit it that way you hit it if it didn't come out from somewhere else, or if you just caught it and said no.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. You gotta just flow with it and just be like, yes, that's a great idea, and let's do this to it. And and then maybe the person on the other side of the ping pong table will be like, okay, well, I'll modify what I did to fit what you did, and then it's just kind of this flow back and forth. And it sounds like a lot of fun. I really need to find some people to play with. And hey, anybody in Minneapolis want to start a jam band? I don't know how to play guitar, but I can kind of play piano.
Well, you don't need as much skill as I think people think you need sometimes, just a jam, like,
Yeah, it's just chords and rhythm. You just hang out for a bit. Like, you're not there to make an album. You're there to just hang out and like have fun with the whole process.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly like how we went into it last year. It's like I haven't seen anybody, I haven't played music with anybody, and we knew the hang was going to be good. Just
Yeah, exactly.
to get
Yeah.
together. Like if nothing comes of this, who cares? Like it was just fun
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do it, and that attitude actually leads to a lot of work getting done. Ironically, because if we were
Yeah.
like, okay, we have to do this and deals,
Yeah.
I
Gotta
don't
have
know.
3 songs today. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know that it would have worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Unproductive work is really, really important and really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's my most productive work.
Exactly.
Well,
Man.
so many of my packs are like just experiments. They're really experiments. Like, let's see what happens if I do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah,
I'm
most of the
pleasantly
time-
surprised.
Yeah, most of the time mine are just kind of like, this is a neat sound. What can I do with it? And I have 2 days until next month starts, so I better get cracking.
Yeah,
But
another
yeah,
deadline,
it's
yeah.
the same. Yeah, it's the same thing where it's just like, these are a neat pile of ideas. What can I do with it to turn it into? I guess for Gumroad it would be a product, but for the most part, just like a useful tool that other people can use. And I've been having a lot of fun with making the sound packs and the contact libraries because of that. Yeah.
Do you ever get like tired of doing it? Like, I don't want to.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. It's the
Like,
same
all
thing
of
with the
this stuff,
2 hour.
I guess, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's all the $5 word is attrition, where it's just like, you have to keep doing it because that's, it's not your job, but it's just like, you just have to keep doing it because you have this momentum going. And if you stop, then you'll be like, oh, well, I didn't do it last month, so I don't have to do it this month. And it's like, you don't want to break that good habit you have. And, overall, I like doing it. The process is fun. Sometimes the work isn't, but the process is fun. And, it's good for quote unquote business, where it's just like, I offer free packs because they go on my mailing list, and then people on my mailing list get to know about more free packs and all the other stuff that I do. And that's good for me as a business. But it's just like having that momentum going and keeping that consistency is so important for me. And, sometimes it's not fun, but that's not necessarily the point. The point is that you have this process and you have this flow and you have this churn of just new things happening, and you're not getting stuck on one idea and just like hammering on that one idea forever. It's like if I spent 4 months making a contact library, I'd probably go crazy because like it's so much work already, and it's that whole idea of finishing things again, where it's just like I could sit down and tweak this stuff forever and make it perfect, but I could also make another thing that might be better than this one in the same amount of time. So it's just like, why not work on that next thing and just make sure that this one is presentable and it works and it's what I wanted it to be. It's like the core idea, but it's not like polished to this sheen that took like an extra 10 hours to do or something. It's just like, it's done. It's great. Let's put it out there. If it for some reason breaks with somebody, I'll try to fix it, obviously. But if it's functional, if it's good, let's get it out there. Let's work on the next one,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is true. Like you get the ball rolling. It's much easier to keep it rolling
Yeah.
than to let it stop and push it from nothing again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's very difficult. I like what you said. It's the work isn't fun. Was it something like that you said? Like the work isn't fun, but
Like
I enjoy it.
It can be fun.
I do find myself
Sometimes
telling
it's not.
people
Yeah.
in classes or whatever, like, you should be having fun doing this, Like, don't forget, it's playing music. Play, have a good time,
I like
have
that.
fun.
Yeah.
But I also find myself saying things like, all that like self-doubt you have, the drudgery, the fear, like that's part of the package. That's just,
Yeah.
you have to really accept that as fun and as exhilarating as it can be. The other half of the time is like miserable self-doubt, like feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome and everything. There's a lot of like misery that goes baked in. And for me, like just, I think it was the podcast, to be honest, like just talking to so many people and never speaking to anyone that was like, yeah, it's really easy, Brian. You know, I do a 2-hour track every day. It always comes out great and got real good at it. And that's it.
Now I'm famous and rich, and now I can just quit. So yeah, see you later.
It's nice to hear that after, I don't think we did the math, but 15 seasons, 15 out, 2-hour challenge, like hundreds, 500 plus, whatever we said, that it still comes with all of that challenge. It's still part of it. And hearing that over and over from people where I was like, what? Even you?
Oh yeah.
It's comforting, and it kind of, when it comes up now, I kind of say, oh, there it is. It's time for this part of the episode, where I feel all negative and
no, I
throw in the towel.
I think that this is going to sound weird. I'm going to clarify. I think that it's awesome that everybody struggles at this. Like, I think that it's great that everybody has a hard time, because that just means that everybody's in this together. And it's just so good to know that everybody has problems sometimes with this. And that's honestly another reason why I like streaming so much, because I can show the times where I have like creative blocks, or the times where I have technical difficulties, or the times where I just don't know how to fix the big mess that I made, where I'm just looking at this. It's just like, how do I fix this? And sometimes I seriously just do Control N and start a new project, like half hour, 45 minutes into the timer. I'm just like, this is not working. And I just start over. And that happens. And being able to document that, I think, is just so valuable to people who, especially who are just starting out as musicians, just to be like, I've been writing music. I've been writing music for 20 years. And like, this never goes away. And you should know this if you're just starting out, that you're never going to be like, you're never going to just sit down and just like, well, I guess if you're Elton John, maybe you can, but like, you can't just sit down and you just like make a song like from scratch and be like, just walk away from the piano and be like, yep, that was great. And it's like, never, it's just like no edits, nothing, it's done. But like having that experience and still conveying the idea that, this process is volatile. Like sometimes things just don't happen, and being able to document that and share that with other people is really important to me. And like Bob Ross is a really big influence on my life creatively, and like what he did with the idea of painting, where it's like anybody can paint, like this is how you do it, but it's still going to be hard, but this is how you do it. It's not hard. Like the physical process of doing it isn't hard. It just takes time, and it just takes effort to actually make it happen. And I think that overall, that's really encouraging for people, because they get the idea that it's like, yeah, I can do this too. I know that it'll be difficult, and I know I'll be putting effort into it, but I can do it. And I feel that there's a lot of people out there who think that they'll never be a music producer or anything like that. It's like, yes, you can. You absolutely can. It just takes that time and that dedication and that drive to actually kind of push through the rough times. And definitely at the beginning, there's more rough times than later on, but that's the process of learning. That's the process of failure. And the whole point of failure is to teach you something. And I think that that's just like something that you have to keep pushing through to get to a point where you fail less, and you're like actually kind of pushing out those ideas that you have. You have the tools and the knowledge to actually evoke those ideas onto the Ableton page or onto the drawing tablet or wherever you're doing your art. Just like being able to shorten that road between your ideas and your work surface is really important.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not like you're happy. You have problems too.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'm not happy that you're struggling, but I'm glad that we all struggle because.
but I'm glad I'm not
Yeah,
broken. Right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
I feel that a lot, and it has been reassuring to hear
Yeah.
that time and
Yeah.
time again. I mean, I haven't heard anyone that's even lied to me about it. So like, it's
Well,
actually
that's good
pretty
too.
easy, Brian. You know,
Yeah. What are you talking about?
here's the secret. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But that's where it gets rewarding, and that's
Mm-hmm.
part of what makes the community rewarding and sharing
Yeah.
this stuff and getting involved with other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. We can all commiserate together.
Yeah. And, there's some days you're going to have it. I feel like a wizard some days. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, yes, I don't know what it is, but it's here and I'm shooting electricity
Yeah.
out of my hands. And there's other days
Yeah.
when I'm like, who am I kidding? How have I lied to myself for so long?
Have the last 20 years just been me faking it? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can get serious,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's real. No offense, but I'm glad it happens to you too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nope. I feel the same way.
Yeah, man. That's nice to hear though, and you're doing awesome work, and
Yeah.
you're also giving a lot to us all. With sharing it, whether it's the
Oh,
sample
thank you.
packs,
Yeah.
whether it's just the production, and whether it's just putting yourself out there, making yourself vulnerable, like
Mm-hmm.
in real time. Like you don't know how bad it could go, and
Yeah.
it could.
Well,
know,
I do know in some circumstances. Yeah.
you might have some idea,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, like I know what you mean. Yeah.
it is. I give you a lot of credit for just the guts to do that,
thank you.
show up over
Yeah.
and over again, and I think it's really valuable. It's valuable to me, and it's really cool to see you. Just every time I talk to you, you're like more resolute and more just you're persevering harder than ever, and it's great. It's inspiring for me.
appreciate that.
I'm excited. After like a good conversation, like I want to do stuff myself, and
Yeah.
I think I'll be productive tonight.
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. Set a timer.
Yeah,
Do it. I want to see what you can make.
yeah. Well, I'm working on
Yeah, and,
like guitar parts and
yeah, go ahead.
songs, so like it's gonna be. I'm just systematically going through it.
Knocking stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always I know we're kind of winding down, but there's always something called the Pomodoro Technique, which is very similar, where it's to set a 20-minute timer and then to take, I think it's like a 20-minute break and then set a 20-minute timer and just like alternate between these two, because you have that deadline of, okay, I need to finish this in 20 minutes. I need to finish this little task. And then I know that I'll be able to take a breather and like have a snack or drink some water or something. Then I know I can get back into it and keep working on it. So that's a really good technique for if you don't have 2 hours, but if you want to kind of bounce between a project and try to focus, that's another really good one.
Yeah, I like that too. And maybe a little shout out to Patches. Patches.zone has a Pomodoro timer for Max for Live.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's just like a discipline thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah.
Just stay on track. It's just 20 minutes. You can do anything for 20 minutes. But
Yeah, that's
I've
the other
had more
nice
and
thing
more-
where it's a
Yeah, I'm
small
sorry, go
block
ahead.
of time, so you're not.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's a small block of time, so you're not investing like 2 hours into it. Like if you're waiting for somebody to get ready before you leave, it's like, okay, well, I can sit down for 10 minutes and learn a little bit of music theory, or sit down for 15. That's how I learned music theory. Like my wife and I commuted at the same time, and when she was getting ready, like putting on her makeup and getting her hair ready and stuff, like I just sat down and I did music theory lessons. Like it took 10, 15 minutes a day for 3 months, and I'm no expert, but at least I understand what I'm doing now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's way better than like stewing on the couch, being like, "Come on,
Yeah.
hurry." What a better way to spend your time for you
Yeah.
and your relationship.
Yeah, maybe.
No, seriously, it's smart. Like you found the little pocket of time. I mean, we all have the same 24 hours, just like Einstein did, and just like everyone else that did great things
Yeah.
with their lives. We have the same day with the same amount of time. So
Yeah.
I think it does come down to how you effectively use it and how you don't waste it. And my phone will always remind me every week on my screen time to show me,
Oh no. Yeah.
like, hey, loser, this is what you did. This is why you didn't finish anything this week.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. But
Oh, man.
cool, man. Let's see. So we will send people to ben-burns.gumroad.com, abstractionmusic.com, and then the
Yeah.
Patreon.
Yeah, I can.
Help them out on Patreon.
Yeah.
Get some
Yeah. So I
fun
can
stuff
go
with that
through
too.
the links if you like. My normal spiel. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube at Ben_Burns, and that's BURNES. And you can find my music on Spotify at abstraction.rocks, which will lead you right to my Spotify page. Obviously, there's new stuff coming out there all the time. I've put out, I think, 4 albums so far this year, and I've got a couple more on the way. Season 11 of the 2 Hour Trek Challenge just went out on Spotify, and that has some pretty cool songs on it. And I have another EP that's kind of lo-fi chill out stuff. I call it Cuddlecore. I don't know why, it's just cute. It's called Hey, and that's coming out early August. I think the first Friday in August, like August 6th or something. I'm really looking forward to that one. That one, I've spent a lot of time on those songs. One of the problems with doing a lot of music in 2 hours is that once you get over 2 hours, you're like, why am I still working on this? It should be done by now. And you get very frustrated. So it's kind of a mixed bag, making most of your music in 2 hours. But I'm really excited for Hey to come out. There's a lot of, it's 5 songs. They're all small and cute, and I really like it a lot.
I love the artwork
yeah.
on that. The little
Thank you very much. Yeah,
like clay monster guy.
Yeah, my friend Amy on Twitter made that. She did a wonderful job on the artwork. Yeah, the whole idea of commissioning people for your art is weird, and I'm still getting used to it. But I really like supporting other artists too. I have Madame Barry did some of the painterly ones that happened art that happened like a year or 2 ago too. So yeah. That's where you can find me. I'm like an open book. If anybody wants to message me on Twitter, my DMs are open. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff. Otherwise, I'd appreciate support on whatever media you prefer. And again, like if you're into Gumroad packs, I release something new every month, and it'll be free. So grab it when you can. Otherwise, it'll be $3, which I feel is fairly reasonable. So
yeah, I agree. It's generous at $3.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I underprice my stuff. That's a whole nother conversation that I want to get into. I undervalue myself way too much, but it's hard to not undervalue yourself. I'm sure you understand that. Most people probably understand that as artists.
Right. And what it's like to shell out the money to get like a new plugin or anything.
Yeah.
It's always like a I don't know. But you take a lot of the pressure off when it's $3. So
yeah, I try. I also have the Everything pack on Gumroad, which is a constantly updating pack that's $50. But every time I release something new, I dump it in there too. So you're basically buying everything that I've made and will make in the future. So at some point, I might raise the price on that depending on how many other things I release. But I still try to keep it a good value just so people don't have to download 30 plus packs on Gumroad,
Right.
It's a convenience thing.
Yeah. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. I look forward to the next time we do it down the road.
Yeah, I'll talk to you in a year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah. It's always fun. It's great to catch up with you. And especially in light of what I said about you being the first guest, and thankful that it went well. I really understand why it went well, and I think talking to you probably gave this show in general a nice, like, optimistic, look on the future probably made me feel like I could do it. So thank you for that.
Tearing up. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate that. Like, that means a lot to me. I'm glad that I could be a part of this, especially when it was at such a formative time. Like episode 10, you were trusting enough to bring me on, and that means a lot. And I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of that.
Yeah, me too, man. And continue to be part in the future.
Yeah. You'll have to send me when you get those demos ready for that music. I do want to hear it. That sounds awesome.
You got it, man.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to check out Ben's work. I'll have all those links in the show notes for you to find. And if you enjoyed this, we did 2 other episodes in the past, and those will be in the show notes too. They were great conversations. Yeah. That's why we're having a third. So have a great day, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you.